I meant to come up with some, yeah, another bum version of the show. I can't actually do it where I normally do these shows. So yeah, home from the old chair again. Welcome to Power Oversteer, the Reckoning. Hey, I'm Kev Kerr, Mr. Kerr, and welcome to Power Oversteer and the Real Motorsports Show on the Elusive Kev channel. And in today's Power Oversteer, we had a race in Indycar at the Boba Motorsports Park in Birmingham, Alabama, and it was the second round of the season, and it was another exciting round of the season, and it threw up quite a surprise winner. Well, not a surprise winner, but a different winner than we've had at Boba Motorsports Park since its inception in 2010 on the IndyCar Series calendar. And so we're going to review the event, we're going to do the race recap, look at the winners and losers, and then do our of the race, our drive of the race, team of the race, and move overtake of the race. But firstly, let's do the race recap. So the race recap, well, I've got my Alabama notes, and so let's talk about what happened in this race. And there was action right from the front. Will Power starting second on the grid, went a bit wide into turn one, kicked up some dirt, kind of compromised Scott Dixon as well, and Marco Andretti took advantage of it, went up to third place. You had Volche, who started third, up to second behind Ryan Hunter-Reay. And then further down the field in turn 7 and 8, you had Oyo Serbia get hit from behind by Graham Rahal, and that kind of collected James Hinchcliffe as well with contact damage. And then on lap 4, James Hinchcliffe kind of stopped on track while Serbia and Rahal went into the pits to get their cars checked out. And unfortunately for Hinchcliffe, he kind of stopped on track. He was pulled into the inside of turn 5, I believe, or on the outside of turn 5, and they're kind of waiting for a caution for him to, get towed back to the pits, and hopefully they can restart the car and check it out. But that never came. So he's basically, in one of the weirdest side stories I've seen, he was basically stuck in the car for over 60 laps. As I look at my notes, I believe he came out, that 71, he finally got out of the car, he gave it a big stretch, he's finally free. And so that's one of the weirdest side stories I've seen to a race, where someone has been waiting for a caution and it never came. And I had the broadcast crew at NBC Sports joke about ordering a pizza for him because he's basically stuck in the car. But yeah, that is what happened to James Hinchcliffe, the winner in St. Petersburg. Unfortunately, he came last here. So, and that was one of the rare times that's happened in the past 60 odd years in American open world racing. So it's very strange to see the winner from the first round finish last here, basically. But yeah, he wasn't the only one to have trouble. As I said, Rahal came in for pit stops, and the race on the caution for about 6 laps there. Finally went to green, and you saw Allmendinger made a brilliant restart, and he got past Will Power, he got past Sebastian Saveja into the top 10. You saw Justin Wilson try and make a move on the outside of Charlie Kimball. He's really aggressive after what happened to him in qualifying with Sato blocking him. He was really aggressive all race long. Didn't really give the results maybe, but it was great to see the Englishman being very aggressive. You saw Alex Tagliani around the outside of Diesel Vestro, and you saw Frank Kitley move up to 13th from where he started right near the back. And then on that night you saw Kimball go down the inside of Andretti into turn 5 for third place. We saw so many moves into turn 5. On the next lap we saw Wilson aggressive down the inside of Scott Dixon. As I said, Wilson really aggressive, and Ed Carpenter came in for a pit stop, very early pit stop, and that was a change of strategy for him. He went on to a 2-stop. It didn't work out for Ed, but he was right there in the top 10 at stages, so it's good to see him show a bit of signs of improvement in his road course and his street course pace, because he is predominantly an oval driver, and of course he won the season closer last year, the season finale in Fontana. So net form in the oval is not really on the road or street courses. And at 12 you saw Dixon fight with Justin Wilson as Andretti had kind of had a train behind him from Dixon, Wilson and Allmendinger in 7. James Jakes pits again. He pitted for the first time from 12. He had a problem with his right rear, and unfortunately it seemed like he had more problems than he was in the pits for a few laps before finally getting out. Then on that 13 we saw Dixon go down the inside of Wilson up to 5th in that turn 5 hairpin. That turn 5 hairpin, so lots of action all day long. It is really the only overtaken spot, but that didn't stop guys from trying to make moves everywhere. But on the next lap we saw the first of more stops again from Alex Tagliani and Graham Rahal. Rahal had a loose car. Alex Tagliani actually had rear ring damage. His rear ring was a bit loose, but they had no time to really change it, and so they kind of stuck with that. And then we saw Kimball go right up to the back of Voltaire, and the battle for third commenced. But Ryan Hunter-Reay was pulling away at the front by like over a second. He was really commanding this race in the early stages. Then we saw Scott Dixon go down the inside of Marco Andretti into turn 5 and up to 4th place. And so we saw Helio Castillo didn't pit on lap 18 for set off sticker reds, and it was actually interesting to see the tyre strategy here, because the red tyres, they're fast and much faster of course, and then you had the medium right sidewall tyres, and it's interesting how most went for reds, but there was an occasional driver who went for mediums, such as I think Kimball did. And so yeah, it was interesting to see that happen, but it kind of depended on your strategy, I think, and of course if your driver liked those tyres. But we saw on lap 21 when Kimball was taking looks at Voltaire, Dixon, he caught up while Hunter-Reay was pulling away at the front, and Kimball nooks into strange places such as turns 14, the penultimate corner, which it goes along and it gets really tight, and then it kind of opens up again for turn 15. But Andretti with his train, he was basically holding from P5 I've got here down to P13, which was Joseph Newgarden, so 8 seconds covered the next 8 cars, which was really interesting. But no one was really close to each other, really fighting. But we did see Tristan Voltaire, he did make a mistake into turn 5, but Kimball, he got a bit too much throttle on the exit, so the car go a bit sideways. Had to correct that on the exit. But that was that when AJ Allmendinger came into the pits for his first pit stop in an over car in over almost 7 years, since Foresight Racing in the Champ Car days before we went to NASCAR. So, but he had a nice pit. Unfortunately for Sebastian Cerveja, he had a bit of an error on his pit exit, and so he was kind of delayed. Next up, Voltaire came in from 2nd. Then we saw Carpenter in 11th with Franchitti and Pagenaud really fighting him down, but we saw Andretti, Bourdais and Di Silvestro pit, and then we saw the top 3 pit on that 26, and then Voltaire kind of made a mistake, and that enabled Kimball and Dixon to jump in on that 27. But at the front at this time was actually Will Power. He was on a 2-stop strategy, different strategy, and he was still on these red tyres. They lasted for 31 laps until he pitted. That was incredible. And he went on to scrub black tyres, had a 7.8 second stop, one of the fastest pit stops of the day from Penske, so great to see. And you saw from his team radio, we got some team radio from him. We didn't hear it from many other drivers, but his team radio on that 34, 2 cars with reds behind, that was, I think it was Andretti and Wilson behind him. But yeah, then we saw some good fighting. Wilson, he was on the warpath. I think he had a delay at his pit stop on that 30, as his tracks went early and his right rear didn't get properly, so it cost him some time. So he came in 9th and came out in 19th, and so yeah, you saw him fight really. He went round the outside of Di Silvestro, got a better run on her out of turn 5, and then in on the inside of course for turn 7, and he went past her like she wasn't even there. That was amazing to see. And then we saw Wilson up and look at Cerveja, but you couldn't quite make the move stick in turn 5 on that 40. And by the halfway point, I normally do say like the standards at the quarter mark, halfway mark, and then the 3/4 mark. I couldn't actually do that for this race because you had like people on different strategies, such as willpower, of course, on 2 stops, and so the order was always a bit jumbled. So you never really had a clear understanding of it until like the last 20 laps of the race. But at this time we had willpower leading, and then Hunter Ray, well, willpower did lead, and we had Hunter Ray pitting. He pitted for scrubbed blacks, and this was interesting. It was a bit earlier because he was fighting with Henrik Neves. He pitted 8 laps later than he did first time round. This time Neves just pitted a lap later, so he kind of lost like lots of time to get Neves, and so it was a bit strange to see him making such an early pit stop. But they said they just wanted to get these blacks out of the way, so they changed him onto, or wanted to get this like black stint off the way, and then it went on to more blacks. But yeah, that's a bit of a strange choice from Hunter Ray. But during this time when he was pitting, we had Charlie Kimball in the lead before he pitted on that 46, and that was nice to see Charlie Kimball leading the race. He pitted with Allmendinger and Wilson. He went from black tyres to black tyres. That's what I said about this different tyre strategy, how he kind of liked the black tyres. It was a bit strange to see, but we did see Neves catch up to Power and Hunter Ray at the front, and so we had a different player into play here at the front in Neves, and Neves went round the outside of Hunter Ray into turn 5, but Hunter Ray kind of locked up on the inside trying to defend on that 49 into turn 5, and they barely touched wheels, but there was no other damage, and Neves went past Hunter Ray. And then on that 51, bit of a controversial moment, I'd say, when Willpower went wide and let his teammate through on a different strategy. I wouldn't call it controversial actually, but I've seen people be a bit dismissive of it, how, especially with F1, with the team order controversy in F1 recently, and how Roger Penty basically came out in St. Petersburg and was like, well, you have team order problems here. They're like, no, we don't do team orders. And then you see this happening at the next race. It's a bit strange, but I understand what it did, different strategies. And basically hold up Hunter Ray with Power, and I think that's maybe the point that Ira's people, that how they tried to use willpower to hold up Hunter Ray. Neves was pulling away by about a second per lap at the front, but I do have a little 2/3 or standings here, so I do have Neves pulling away from Power and Hunter Ray. I do have Kimball gaining in 4th with Dixon, Pagino in 6th, 427, then Andretti Wilson and Newgarden in the top 10. So that was the order before Neves pitted. Not Neves, Power pitted on lap 60, sorry about that, and he went on to Reds for his final stint, and that was for 30 laps. Now we saw he did start the race on these Reds for 30 laps. Kind of didn't work for the last stint though, so maybe he should have gone to blacks, but it's always something to look after the race. And then we had Sato making his move. He's been anonymous all race, but he locked up the front there, went down the inside of Saveja with the turn 5 for 20th spot. That's how anonymous Sato was this race. Really strange to see. But then Allmendinger came on lap 64, pitted but stalled on pit exit. He went out came out behind Kimball a lap down now, and that really did cost him a number of places. He was kicking himself like hell in the post-race interview, but it was his first time in an open wheel car in a number of years, especially with pit stops, very different from NASCAR, and so you kind of expected these mistakes, and he shouldn't kick himself too much. He showed great pace on his return, qualifying top 10. That's pretty impressive for a guy who's been away from open wheel car for almost 7 years, so that was nice to see. Lap 65, Dixon pitted from 3rd, puts on fresh reds, and then we have Pagino pitting as well, putting on reds, and Newgarden and Bourdais. We have Hildebrand and Tony Kanaan, KV Racing. Where were they this race? Pitting as well. And then we had Kimball pitting the next lap, 8.9 stop for scrubbed reds, but came out behind Dixon. That was pretty important. And Vautier pitted as well. And then Neves pitted on lap 67 for new blacks, because he had only used reds beforehand. And like in F1, well, F1 kind of nicked this rule. We have to use both compounds, and so yeah, you have to use red and black, and he hadn't used blacks before, so he had new blacks for the last stint. And then Hunter Ray pitted, and he kind of gained time with Neves, who had a bit of a slower stop Andretti pitted for New Reds, just like his teammate, and Sato and Di Silvestro pitted, where Sato actually came out ahead of Di Silvestro after the pit stop. So great work from the AJ4 team there. And then on that 69, Volte again made a mistake into turn 1, and Wilson pitted from second for Scrub Reds for his final set. And then on that 70, he kind of had Hunter-Reay stuck behind Carter for most of that. And so Castroneves, had a lead by a couple of seconds. That kind of extended a bit. And then Dixon went down the inside of Power to turn 5 for third. And then you had Kimball right behind him. Pagano right behind Kimball. So we had this great battle for 5th place. And then you had Andretti, Wilson, Volger and Newgarden completing top 10 with Bourdais right behind Newgarden now, as Volger was a bit slow. So, Volger, Newgarden, Bourdais, that's kind of a thing. And then James Hinchcliffe, as I said, finally came out of his car. But you had Hunter-Reay right behind Castroneves at the front, with Dixon catching the front too. And so with 15 laps to go, Hunter-Reay finally made his move, dives down the inside with his front left lock, goes into the lead, and there was no contact made with Castroneves this time, and he kind of pulled away from Castroneves. Then the next lap, Dixon used push to pass, just like Hunter-Reay did on the previous lap before turn 5, but he didn't make his way down. He dives down the inside, and he actually did make his way through. I should have read my notes before I made that point, but yeah, he did make his way through, and so he went into second, and the fight was really on for the lead between Hunter-Reay and Dixon. And we also saw Kimball go down the inside of Power into turn 12, a brilliant move where you would not expect it at all in these fast corners around 100 miles per hour, going down the inside of Power into turn 12, holds it for turn 13 to complete the move for 4th, with Pagano right behind. And then Newgarden went down the inside of Volger into turn 5 for 9th with a great switch back move. Actually, he looked on the outside, Volger kind of went on the outside, then he dived down the inside. Great move from Newgarden. Great to see this Surface Harmon Racing guy really show some great moves that out there. He had a really tough rookie season. It's great to see this year coming back a bit more experienced, a bit more wiser, maybe a bit more of himself. And then we have Bourdais off track in turn 7 and 8 after going a bit too hard. He's right behind Volger for 10th place, and that kind of dropped him back a couple of positions behind Rahal and co. But as I said, Hunter-Reay and Dixon were pushing hard at the front, lapping a second per lap faster than anyone else. It was a classic battle. We also saw Di Silvestro pass Allmendinger for 19th on that 87th. We saw Hunter-Reay making mistakes, in this battle, going wide in turns 2 and 3, and then turn 5 was all locking up. But in the end, you let Dixon home by less than a second, and they were less than a second behind chasing this group at the back with Savager in 20th. So, it's great timing for Hunter-Reay, and one more lap, you might have been in trouble. Pagano was 3rd, with Kimball in 4th and Power in 5th. Pagano in 6th, Andretti 7th, Wilson 8th, Newgarden 9th, and Volger completing the top 10. And that is the race report with notes. And it was a brilliant race, much better than I described. If you're on YouTube, as you probably are if you're watching this, I'm sure you can maybe find a race replay, and it's great to watch. But that is the race recap. Let's go and see who were the winners and losers of this race. So the winners and losers from this weekend in IndyCar, and again the winners, you might have to say Andretti Autosport. It didn't go all their own way though, but Ryan Hunter-Reay of course grabbed the win, leading 53 laps, over half the race as well, and he got 54 points for that, 14 more than Scott Dixon in second. And you also had Marco Andretti again continue a good start to the season in 7th, and he had a great start at the beginning, didn't he, Marco Andretti, up to 3rd, but he did fall back a bit in the race, especially in the middle part of the race when all these alternate strategies such as 2 stoppers for Will Power and Harry Castroneves, they kind of played out, and they kind of made him drop back, and other guys kind of jumped him like Simon Pagano, but he kept it going, and he got a good solid top 10 position, which is always good for Marco, and it's good to see. Maybe he might show some consistency this season. EJV saw as 12th, and of course we know about James Hinchcliffe being at the back after his car stopped very early on. He did a contact on the first lap with Oversteer and Graham Rahal, and then his car stopped on track, and then they tried to park him in some position, and this bizarre like side story to the race where he was basically sat in his car waiting for a caution that never came for almost whole of the race before he finally got out of his car with just over 10 laps to go. But yeah, not the race that the winner of the season opener in St. Petersburg wanted. But again, Penske had another solid run here with Castroneves and Will Power both in the top 5, and AJ Allmendinger again 19th. That pit stop right at the end of the race really did cost him, because he was running like in the top 12 for almost the whole of the race, and then that dropped him back, and he got passed by Di Silvestro in the end, and only 19th. I think he was really kicking himself in the post-race interview, but it's a good experience for him in the open wheel car. Again, he'll be back in Long Beach and then the big one in the Indy 500. But yeah, another very solid weekend for Penske and for Scott Dixon as well in second, and again Dario Franchitti right at the back in 25th with another mechanical issue with his car, and it's such a shame for Franchitti to just have his bad luck continuing with this new car. Last year, I know he won the Indy 500, but he even when he qualified on pole, I remember he retired before the race with engine issues. So it's such a shame to see him having so many troubles. I'm not the biggest Franchitti fan, but he seems to be much better than he's given out at the moment, and I do hope he improves his form and really shows why he was a 4-time champion, and a 3-time Indy 500 winner. Well, what else is there? Chip Ganassi again with Charlie Kimball in 4th, and he was running in the top 3 for most of that race, starting from 5th, and brilliant from Kimball, and he's shown this before in Toronto last year with a podium, but he didn't show it much where else, almost nowhere else on the calendar. So hopefully he does show that again this year, shows it more this year, and so that would be nice to see. And Smith, Peterson, Hamilton, HP Motorsports, they had a very good day. Top 10s for Volche and Pagenaud, even though Volche fell down from being right up there in second in the early part of the race. He fell down to 10th, but it was a good run for him, good solid run. He got to the end, that's the most important thing I guess for the rookie. And even though Pagenaud jumped in, I don't know what happened to Pagenaud's strategy there. It just worked out brilliantly for him in the second half of the race. He jumped from fighting with say Bourdais and around 15th to 6th in the end. So yeah, great strategy from the team there, and great playing it out by Pagenaud, really helping that work. Justin Wilson, the Delcoin machine, very good, and again and Beatrix a bit off the pace in 24th, a few laps down, and she did have a mechanical in the end. And losers, well, Dragon Racing, I'm looking at this, Bourdais in 16th, Stavagia in 20th. I know Bourdais was fighting Volche for that top 10, then he made a mistake into turn 7, and quite an uncharacteristic mistake for Bourdais. He's normally quite reliable, but made a mistake that dropped him down to 16th. Stavagia was running in top 10 for the first half of the race, and he just dropped back as well. I remember he had issues with his pit stops, so that kind of contributed to it, but it was strange to see him dropping back as well. So Dragon Racing got to improve that race pace a bit. Takuma Sato as well, considering a bit of a loser here with 14th after great qualifying pace he showed before he got his 2 fastest laps in Q2 kind of right, and for blocking Justin Wilson. But I would have expected him to come through the field a bit more. He did have that great move as well on JR Hildebrand, I believe it was on, and that was just a rare glimpse of what he could show. He didn't really show pace throughout the race, and so yeah, that was a bit of a shame to see. And of course Rahal Letterman with Graham Rahal and James Jakes running top 12 in the early parts, and then he had issues with his right rear tyre, I believe, and they put him a couple of laps down. He never recovered those laps, and unfortunately he had quite a few pit stops, had the most in the race with 5, and along with Rahal who's had 5. And of course about his first lap incident with Serbia, and just never really recovered from that afterwards. So yeah, it was pretty poor for Rahal Letterman. And finally, KV Racing Technology, Tony Kanaan in 13th, Simone Di Silvestro in 18th, and it was just a tough day for them. They just did not show pace at all. I really did kind of expect them to go through the order like they did in St. Petersburg, particularly with Kanaan, but they just never showed that pace here, and they never really showed it in the race. Kanaan did make up some positions, 6 positions in the end, but you know, it wasn't very good. And I'll leave it on a high note with a winner, Joseph Newgarden in the Sarah Fisher Hartman Racing Machine, 9th place, coming up from 22nd on the grid, biggest mover in the race, and it was a brilliant race for the young guy, and it's incredibly his first top 10 in the IndyCar series, I believe. So that is something to build on this season. I hope to see more of Newgarden in for the rest of the season, doing these top 10 positions, you know, with the small Sarah Fisher Hartman Racing Machine team. And he did qualify well in the Indy 500 last year, so maybe look for him to maybe, you know, grab some headlines there. So yeah, that's the winners and losers. Let's do of the race. So of the race, and it's going to be tough to pick a driver of the race. I think Hunter and Dixon both deserve that. Kimball as well in 4th. Power in 5th. He did have a poor start though, so that probably drops him out of the reckon. Of course, he did go wide in turn 1. You know, kicked up some data, lost some time at the start, so that didn't really help. Pagano in 6th. Vautier in 10th, running right up there before having some dramas, and Newgarden as well being biggest climber of the race from 22nd to 9th, and of course Justin Wilson staying up there in the Delcoin machine as well. He was really fighting for top 5s for falling back a bit, and then he kind of regained speed in the last third of the race, and so came in 8th. But our joint give it to Hunter Ray and Dixon, because Hunter Ray just running by himself, running so much faster than Vautier and Kimball, who were fighting for second in that first part of the race, and then it kind of fell back a bit, and then you saw Penske with their kind of team orders with Power, you know, trying to hold him up for catching Nevers, and then when he made his way past, he just fought through all of that, and you know, he got past Cashin Nevers, and he got in the lead, and he just held on to Dixon despite intense pressure. Those two were really driving for their lives at the end. It was brilliant to watch. You didn't see them making mistakes just because they were driving so hard. Maybe F1 can learn from that, but yeah, that was a great thing to see from Hunter Ray and Dixon, right it, and really pushing on, really fighting hard. In the end, it only separated by less than a second, I believe, at the end. So that was great to see, and I think both those guys deserve driver of the race for that. Team of the race, and it's kind of hard to choose between Penske and say Smith, Peterson, Hamilton, because that strategy for Pagano really did work out, going up to 6th, and again with Penske getting Power right up there on that alternate 2-stop strategy up into the top 5. And so I think I'll give it to Smith, Peterson, Hamilton instead of Penske. You know, you expect top 5s, but I think their change of strategy for Pagano really did work. And even though Vautier did drop back in the end, I think that was more due to the rookie than the team, and so I think I'll give it to the team. I'll give them the team of the race. An overtake of the race. Well, there's so many moves into turn 5, but the one that sticks in my mind is a move by Charlie Kimball into turn 12 and 13. Not where you expect it at all. He just caught Will Power napping and went down the inside into turn 12, down the hill. Great move, great opportunist move, and he just went for it and then held it into turn 13. It was a brilliant move, really unexpected in a spot you don't really expect to see that. And Kimball, you know, he led 3 laps, finished in 4th. Great race for him, and hopefully something, as I said, I expect him to do much more during the season. So great move from Kimball, and he gets overtake of the race. And so that is my review of the Grand Prix of Alabama. Next up in Long Beach in a couple of weeks, that is going to be a great race. Expect some safety cars, maybe expect some cautions, because there is a tight hairpin right at the beginning of the lap, and there occasionally there's been some knock-ins, such as Newgarden and Franchitti last year. So yeah, it should be an interesting race in Long Beach, a bit more like St. Pete than here, but as it's another street course. And then we got Sao Paulo, and then we got the big one the Indianapolis 500 in May. But I do hope you've enjoyed this. For watching. I'll be back with another Power Oversteer, a Chinese Grand Prix preview of the F1 race this weekend. So out for watching. So till next time, cheerio. So yeah, there's more stuff that went on this weekend as we do some post-roll action. And there was MotoGP, and good friend on YouTube, Alison 101 HD, he's doing reviews of the MotoGP rounds this season, so I'll link him somewhere, probably in the description below. But yeah, check that out. He does a great review of what happened in round 1 in the Sao in the Qatar this weekend, and it was a pretty anonymous win for Jorge Lorenzo, as everyone was talking about his teammate Valentino Rossi and how he worked his way through the field. And Rossi kind of made a mistakes early on, and he was stuck behind Stefan Bradl early on, and he made his moves, and he just caught up to the chasing back of Lorenzo, who contained both the Repsol Honda guys such as Pedrosa and Marquez and Calcotro on the Tech 3 Yamaha. And he made a great move on Crotcher, and he made great moves all race long, and he showed the Doctor was in session. He had not lost any of that, racecraft, that fighting spirit, that in those dormant years in Ducati and for the past 2 years, he really was top notch, and it was great to see. And in the CRTs, you had Alex Espargaro winning on the Aspar CRT machine. So yeah, that was good to see from the CRTs. And we had Colin Edwards, still there, still on the grid. His 11th season in MotoGP. Amazing to think, and I've seen every one of those. That's, God, I feel old now. But yeah, that yeah, but that was great to see, Colin Edwards get some points as well. And so yeah, that was a bit about Qatar. Good action on track, and as I said, Rossi really made that into a very good race. And Moto2s as well. Paul Espargaro, the younger brother of Alex, won that from Scott Redding, Great battle in Moto2 as well. And then Moto3, I've forgotten the name of the winner. I probably should have researched, but yeah, that was a great Moto3. It's so entertaining. It's on BBC iPlayer now, I believe. So yeah, check that out. That Moto2, Moto3, really entertaining, and MotoGP entertaining for once, with Rossi's ride. So yeah, that is MotoGP. And there was World Touring Car Championship from Marrakesh in Morocco with AutoGP supporting. And I didn't actually watch the AutoGP. I actually only watched the World Touring Car Championship. And interesting format this year with both races being close together. We saw in the first race Mikkel Nikke, well, the Danish driver. He won his first race, and it was brilliant to watch. He celebrated like a madman. He really did show personality. It was great to see, and unfortunately he didn't have much time to celebrate as the race two. They had to be on the grid. There was a repair time of 15 minutes, and they had to be on the grid by then, unfortunately. And in the second race, we saw another first time winner, Pepe Oyoya in the Sia, and he's only 18, which amazes me. I've seen him the past few years, since he entered when he was 16, incredibly, and he's just matured into his great driver. And Marrakesh circuit is very strong round it. Last year it was the best independent, I believe, in one of the races. So very strong circuit for him, and he took advantage of basically just Van Muller and Tom Chilton kind of battling behind between themselves, and took advantage of that. Unfortunately for Gabriele Tarquini, he had a massive accident after one of the chicanes, and it was just like Thiago Montero, his Honda teammate, had one in qualifying, I believe, or practice. And yeah, it is one of those stupid curves on the inside where if you get the corner slightly wrong in entry, you know, you compromise the exit, of course. Then on the exit, he just went on over this curve, and it kind of flipped his car out of control into the wall. Unfortunately, he collect. I think it was Alex Medal. He accidentally collect the Chevy guy, and we also saw James Nash do well in the races. So yeah, that was good to see from James Nash being best independent with even race 2. So that was nice to see for the Bamboo Engineering entry. And so World Touring Cars again, exciting, and put them on a street course, which isn't really. I'm not sure if it's good, Marrakesh, but they do have some pointless corners that as you can just cut you can just cut them out basically. And then maybe they got to rework that circuit a bit on the chicanes, maybe rework some of the curves, because I saw with the Tarquini crash that was basically caused by, well, A, from him being a bit out of sync on that corner, but B, by one of the curves on the exit. So maybe they got to rework that for next year, if it's on next year. I think it's missed it before when it's been on the calendar, and no one really wanted to go there, but yeah, it's missed it before. It wasn't really ready, rather, I should say. But yeah, that's a bit about what else happened this weekend. So yeah, I hope you got this. Yep, bye.